How concerned should the Dallas Cowboys be about defensive tackle Mazi Smith? All that and more this episode of Locked On Cowboys Podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked on Cowboys. Locked on Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We'd like to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. Visit betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. I am your host, Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. Joining me today, as always, is Landon McCool. You can check him out on Twitter at McCoolBCB. Today, we are breaking down some of the most notable players from week 2 of the preseason. We're not going to get to all of them today, so make sure that you tune in for the next couple of days as we talk about some of the winners and losers. But Landon, we have to start with Mazi Smith, and people are just railing on him on Twitter right now. But how concerned should the Cowboys be about Mazi Smith after a lackluster showing?
I don't think that there's reason to be concerned yet. I think that he hasn't shown us what we need to see from him yet, as far as what we're looking for in the regular season. But I'm here's what I'm going to be talking out of both sides of my mouth here, because I'm going to be talking about his issues exclusively here. But I also want everyone to kind of understand that there's still time, and that this is the kind of thing that what we're talking about, that once he gets it, once it clicks, I think his progression will happen quickly, because he has the kind of athletic upside that we've all seen. He has the skill set to be doing what he's doing in the NFL. The problem is that we're asking a rookie to be playing at a speed much higher than he's ever played before, while using techniques that he's never used before. It's a very difficult ask. And so this isn't a case where Mazi Smith doesn't have it or whatever that is. This is a case where the Cowboys are trying to change the way that he plays, and we're seeing a guy who's going through that transition. So, go ahead, Mark.
I was going to say, to me, it just a very simple way of saying this is it looks like a really strong player that's trying to figure out in the NFL that you can't just be really strong to win, right? Like, he relied so much on his strength at Michigan, and you can do that against some smaller, lighter centers. But in the NFL, those centers and guards, they can find ways to reach block you. They can find creative ways to get you off balance. So this is pretty common for a lot of the players of his type coming into the NFL in the preseason.
Yeah, and again, it's an uphill battle. I mean, he's incredibly strong, but he's being asked to do something that he's never really done before at a pace higher than he's ever played before. So the three main things, and I reached out to John Onings, friend of the show, obviously. And he has an article coming out today with PFF. You guys make sure you check that out. He breaks it down. But we had a little conversation because, he's a guy I trust on defensive line play. I wanted to make sure that I was seeing what I was seeing correctly, and I trust him. So I reached out, and this is the three areas where I feel like he is struggling. And I think all of what we saw kind of fits into it being one of, if not at times, all three of these issues, right? One, the late snap reaction. We've talked about that. This is the main part of what he's doing differently, right? He's not catching blockers like he was at Michigan. He's trying to get off the ball quickly. It's instead of read and react, he's reacting and then reading. And that sort of flip in process is difficult, for him. And that's something that he's having to learn, while also trying to react at the same speed that the NFL players are reacting, right? Number two, he's not recognizing what sort of block is happening to him, because he is used to reading and reacting. He's used to seeing blocks coming at him from a certain angle and at a certain speed, and then recognizing that. Now he's having to see it from a completely different point of view. Things at the NFL level are more advanced. He's just seeing a whole bunch of different types of blocks. He's not recognizing what's happening to him yet, and then reacting appropriately, which is, something that will come after seeing these blocks and feeling them and recognize them. Say, hey, I feel a guy on my side. I need to brace myself for side contact, that sort of thing. And then the third thing, and I think this is the issue that is the one that will be solved the quickest to me, is he's getting his leverage too high, either because offensive linemen are lifting him up during the snap or striking him when he's in bad leverage body position. There's too many times when we're seeing him like up on one leg, or, like kind of moving high and then being disheveled instead of getting low, putting his hands above his eyes and pushing guys back, right? He's strong enough that on double teams, he's able to kind of sit himself down. And I feel like in the game, he played better against double teams than he did against a lot of these single blocks, because he's just so strong and he understands how to fight through a double team, right? But when he's getting a one-on-one block and he doesn't understand exactly what the guard is trying to do to him, sometimes he will try to move around a block and then not realize that he's moving right where the guard or center is trying to move him. And then all they have to do is position their body in the right way. And then suddenly he's sealed off. So these are all things that I think, he just needs to see it and then have a level of understanding happen on each one of these things. And then it's going to click and it's going to happen a lot quicker, and he's going to play a lot better, but he's not there yet. And he still needs to kind of continue to get there. And I do believe that this is not like I don't think this is going to be like a season long thing. I mean, he could be markedly better by week 1. But I do think that these are the issues that he's having to deal with, and he's trying to work through them while, again, playing at a speed that he's not used to playing at. Can I add one more thing? I'm sorry, I forgot to mention. He also played an abnormally high number of 3 tech and 2 eye tech snaps, which I thought was very interesting usage. So those are all the things I saw on Mazi. I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys are just trying to figure out where to best play him. And I think the easy answer is obviously nose tackle. But if you're playing in a Dan Quinn defense, there's going to be times where you're lined up as a 3 technique, or you're lined up as a 2 eye, or you're lined up as maybe even a 5 technique in certain situations. So we saw that with, was it Red Bryant that they had forever in Seattle?
Like 5 technique.
You're going to be doing a lot of different stuff. I just look at, like, even look inside the Cowboys division, Dexter Lawrence, who was number 17 pick from the Giants, really struggled as a rookie. Like, this was somebody who was a athletic freak, really struggled as a rookie. Now he's one of the best defensive tackles in the league. Yeah. Jordan Davis, I think, played 220 snaps total last year for Philadelphia. Like, they just couldn't afford to have him on the field because he was so raw. And that's somebody who played 4 years of SEC football. It just takes these guys time. Like, defensive tackle is the one position that you just can't expect these players to come in right away and be finished products. Like, it's going to take Mazi a little bit of time to learn, okay, this is how I beat a center. This is how I hold up better against a double team. This is how I don't get reach blocked on a wide zone run. Like, it's coming. Just be patient. It's not going to be perfect in week 1.
Yeah. And that's the thing, right? Is what can he do right away? Like that is useful, that is that is going to be beneficial to the Cowboys. And I think he can do a lot of that stuff right away. Like, and I think the idea that he needs to be a finished product to be useful to what the Cowboys are doing is that's incorrect. Like, he is going to be a useful product right away. And look, it's one of those situations where it's, people are comparing him to Taco and all that. And it's like that, this is not the case at all. Mazi is immediately going to be useful for this team. He's going to get snaps right away. He's going to be helpful against the run right away, I think. I don't know that he's going to be the dominant force that he will be, by the end of this year, by the end of next year, at the start of the season. But that doesn't mean that he isn't a valuable piece on this defensive line, starting week 1.
Let's move on to some of the other notes from week 2 of the preseason, including a devastating injury for a Cowboys draft pick next. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Sometimes in life, we're faced with tough choices, and the path forward isn't always clear. Whether you're dealing with decisions around your career or relationships or anything else, therapy helps you stay connected to what you really want while you navigate life, so you can move forward with confidence and excitement. Trusting yourself to make decisions that align with your values is like anything. The more that you practice, the easier it gets. I've done therapy. I've known several friends that have done therapy. All of us can't to talk about how helpful it's been. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's done entirely online. It's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for any reason at no additional charge. Let therapy be your map. Visit BetterHelp. That's betterhelp.com/lockedon today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast. On tomorrow's show, we're going to discuss more of the winners and losers from week 2 of the preseason. But Landon, to me, this is the story of the preseason. DeMarvion Overshown, the Cowboys' 3rd-round pick at linebacker, tore his ACL early in this game. And it's just an absolute bummer because he looked so good in the preseason.
Yeah, it looked like he was coming on. He was going to probably have a little bit of a role on defense for sure, and they were going to use him in several different ways. Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunate, right? And that this, the Cowboys had managed to kind of go through without too many major injuries, and then to have two with Overshown, and we'll talk about John Stevens Jr. in a little bit too, but to have them both go down with ACL injuries in this game is brutal, and I think that's just kind of shows you exactly how this game goes sometimes, right? Like, we were talking about how roster cutdowns are going to happen and how you're going to fit everyone. And usually what ends up happening is that they end up kind of finding a way to sort things out through unfortunate means like injuries, right? So it's going to be interesting to see exactly. I mean, both of these guys, I think, have futures with the Cowboys. Both of these guys are someone that they're going to try to find a way to obviously Overshown especially, but I think both of these guys, they'll find ways to keep on the roster to try to keep around for next year. And I still think that both of them have bright futures ahead of them, but it is unfortunate whenever a young player suffers a season-long injury in their rookie year. It's a tough thing to try to overcome.
And I think what's so frustrating about the Overshown one or disappointing is that the play that he got hurt on was an incredible play. I went back and watched the all 22 of it today. They run basically, it's like just a flat route with the running back to the sideline. Not only does Overshown get there to make the tackle, but he has to fight through a tight end to get there. And then he makes a tackle for a loss. It's like there haven't been many Cowboy linebackers that have that kind of like speed and agility to, first of all, get there, but also to crank down a little bit and then be able to make that tackle. I was getting to the point where it's like I thought there was a chance that Overshown could have had a bigger role in this defense than anybody even anticipated. And now I just wonder, like, instead of using 3 linebackers or rotating linebackers, if we'll just see them use more safeties. Like that's probably what they're going to do here.
I mean, that's probably what they were going to do beforehand too, right? Like Overshown showed you something that you're like, okay, let's maybe give him some more snaps and maybe we use him a little bit more. I think they probably just go back to their original plan there, right? And just use more safety. I mean, honestly, I think another guy that we should talk about is I think that Cox has had a pretty decent.
Jabril Cox.
I thought Jabril Cox had a really good game last Saturday. So there's a good chance that he kind of steps in and takes some of those snaps as well. And I think that he likely was going to see snaps anyways. But I think for Cox, it's ironic that he is going to get another kind of second chance at becoming linebacker 3 due to somebody else's ACL injury.
Yeah.
And so that's just the way that this position goes. Unfortunately, it's a position of attrition. So for Cox,
that's why you have to draft so many linebackers.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Just these guys they're so big, they're so fast, and then they have to play such a physical position that you really need like 4 guys that you can rely on or some safeties that can fill in if you need them.
Yeah, I know some people are talking about going out and sign a veteran linebacker, and maybe they do that, but I do think that you've got Cox, you've got Harper, and you've got like 63 other safeties who can play that second level position. So, and this is a team that likely will use linebackers at a rate less than maybe any other team in the NFL. So I think that there is ways to work around it, but I think with Overshown, you liked him specifically. Like you wanted to find a way to get him on the field. So it's not going to be hard to like replace the snaps, but it's difficult because you liked the player and you would have liked to have him on the field.
Oh, I just thought he gave them something different that they didn't have. Damone Clark is really athletic. Van Der Esch is really athletic, but that that weak side linebacker that can really fly to the football. That was Overshown. And it bums me out. I'm optimistic that he'll be fine. He'll be good to go by the 2024 season, but it's just, and now we've got to wait a whole year before we get to see him again. It's a bummer. You mentioned John Stevens, the Cowboys tight end, who also tore his ACL this game. Feel really bad for him because he was a fringe 53-man roster player. We know Overshown's going to be on this team, but John Stevens, his future is a little bit more in doubt. But Lane, I think we were trending in a direction where I thought he had a chance to beat out Peyton Hendershot for like that tight end 3 spot.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Hendershot had the one is one of the winners from Saturday, and not only because he played pretty okay. It's the injury, unfortunately for him, kind of all but secures his spot on the team because of this.
Yeah.
And honestly, I don't think this isn't going to be career killing for John Stevens. If anything, it gives him the opportunity to be with a team. He's going to rehab. He'll get another year to kind of develop his skill set a little bit more. It's obviously tough, and it's terrible whenever you see rookies lose their rookie season to injury. But this is a guy that was kind of a fringe player on a roster anyways. This way, he can come in. It's going to be interesting to see the roster mechanisms that the Cowboys use, but it's going to be, I think it'll be interesting. It's an opportunity for him to see exactly. Go ahead. What were you going to
say? I got a feeling what's going to happen is Overshown, they're going to have to carry just through the cuts and then place him on the IR the next day after the 53-man cuts. John Stevens, I won't be surprised if the Cowboys waive him injured, and then he passes through waivers, and then he reverts to the injured reserve list. He hadn't played enough, and he wasn't a draft pick. You're probably okay waiving him injured and trying to get it back.
Well, and there's also, I mean, this is one of the benefits for you that there's only one cutdown day, right? The sheer volume of available players that day is going to be enormous. So I think you can kind of hide him through the sea of undrafted free agent tight ends that will also be released that day. So, I'm thinking he comes back to the team in one way or another, but probably the way we just discussed.
One last injury update. Matt Waletzko, the Cowboys' right tackle, potentially swing tackle, left this game with a shoulder injury. Sounds like he's going to be okay. It's nothing super serious. He might miss a week of practice or two, but I got to believe he's going to be ready for week 1 at the very least, or quickly thereafter. I was worried that this was going to be a longer term injury.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if that was the case, I was wondering, do they have to go out and sign a Jason Peters to be a swing tackle, because they just don't have very many tackles on this roster.
Yeah, I mean, they really want to avoid signing a veteran offensive lineman before week 1 if they can. I mean, that's just so you don't have to guarantee their contract. The fact that he was able to avoid not only kind of a season-ending injury, but it sounds like it's not even a subluxation like the other one was. It sounds like it's a less severe version. So. The fact that he's being referred to as day-to-day, I think you're right that a week off from practice probably sounds appropriate. That's really good news for the Cowboys. We'll have a whole conversation about the offensive line and how they perform tomorrow, so you guys make sure you check out the podcast tomorrow about that.
All right, let's talk about maybe the biggest winner of the entire offseason for the Dallas Cowboys next. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is about to kick off, and FanDuel is giving you the chance to win all season long, because right now, when you bet on a Super Bowl winner, you get a bonus bet every single time they win in the regular season. Just pick any team to win the Super Bowl, and you'll get a bonus bet for any victory, or for every victory. Cowboys are projected over 9.5 wins. I think they're going to win at least double-digit games this year. Let's say they win 10 games. That's 10 free bets. You can use those bonus bets on the spread, player props, over-unders, future bets, and so much more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and start earning bonus bets with America's #1 sportsbook. That is FanDuel.com/lockedon. All right, Landon, we have to talk about Jalen Tolbert, who had another fantastic preseason showing. I think this was his best game. Yet he was doing everything. He made an incredible catch down the sideline, playing in the slot, making some tough grabs. I'm just shocked at how much he's progressed over the last year.
Yeah, and honestly, it wasn't a flawless performance, but again, the fact that he's playing this well and performing this well in the games now, and the expectation level has risen, right? He had a double clutch on a slant and he had a drop, but outside of that,
hold on on that drop. I'm pretty sure the ball got tipped at the line of scrimmage and it knuckled it a little bit.
You think so? I haven't.
Yeah.
I was wondering because the ball did get delivered like kind of almost back shoulder on a slant, right?
I watched the drop. The ball I think got tipped by the defensive tackle and it just created a little bit of a knuckle on the ball. So yeah, he still needs to catch it anyway.
Still needs to catch it, but
it wasn't a pure drop.
Yeah, true. That's good. That's a good note. And then on the double clutch, it was a situation where I think the ball was a little bit behind, and he just needs to snatch it. And I think he got the good news is that he held on to it and
he
even
caught
contact, and he caught it, so that was positive. But outside of that was just brilliant. I mean, was beating people off the line. The contested catch stuff down the field was brilliant. The way he tracked the ball, comeback was able to get it despite the pass interference on him. Had a couple other catches on key leverage. I'm pretty sure he had all 4 catches were for first downs, if I'm not mistaken. And on top of that, just had some moments that I noticed where he was blocking really well as kind of an off the end of the line blocker. I just thought that, honestly, I mean, look, this is a Tolbert situation, but I thought that all 3 of the wide receivers who started last night, Brooks and Turpin, all played pretty decent games. But Tolbert, again, like just kind of the drum beat, which has now been elevated, right? Like, I mean, I think you mentioned it. It's hard to argue that anybody gained more out of this training camp, let's put it that way, than Jalen Tolbert did, right? The confidence, he looks incredible. I mean, again, where we've gone to from, I hope he grabs this wide receiver for a spot, to we're going to need to give Jalen Tolbert some serious looks during the season. I think
they got to get him on the field. Like that's the difference we're at.
That's the difference, right? And I think that's a really, really big step from where he was last year. I mean, honestly, it's what's been really great is to go into camp after listening to OTA talks to see it for yourself, right? To see Tolbert out there, and it's not even just the flashes that you're seeing on Twitter when when he show a great video of him high pointing. It's the little things, everything that he's doing right that he wasn't doing last year, and then to see him kind of translate to the game, and then see the rest of the Cowboys Nation kind of get an opportunity to see it. It's just been really fun.
Yeah, he looks absolutely incredible right now. I hope the Cowboys can find creative ways to get him on the field. I don't know. I think like 15 to 20 snaps a game would be nice because, man, he just offers you something a little bit different than some of the other receivers they have. He's not CeeDee Lamb. He's not Michael Gallup, but he's a blend of those 2 receivers, and he gets open. He makes some incredible plays in the ball. I'm just really excited about him going into the year. The last thing before we go, I have to capitulate a little bit on this running back situation. I thought Malik Davis was going to be the RB2. I thought he was the best inside runner. I'm ready to surrender right now. It's Rico Dowdle, and I'm not even sure all that's close. Rico looked awesome in this game.
He really did. I mean, it was everything, right? Like it was running inside, it was running with the burst, he was violent, he was decisive, his pass protection was good, and he showed you something as a pass receiver, both as a option out into the flat, but also from the slot running a slant flat. I just think that when you look at, and look, Deuce Vaughn is also equally impressive. Didn't quite have as many carries to kind of show himself because I think they were kind of.
I know what his role is going to be. Like,
exactly.
He's going to get to 6 touches a game, and we're going to love every single one of them.
I think that's what we've discovered, right? Is that I think this game kind of solidified what the roles are, right? Dowdle is the other back, the guy that you're going to give carries on par with Pollard to, not as many, but he's the guy that's getting the carries when it's time for Pollard to get a breather, right? Vaughn is the guy that you are scheming touches to, that you are specifically, every single one of his touches you probably have a specific plan for, right? And I think that's what you saw from Rico was a workman-like performance. He took what was there. He got a little bit more. He was physical, like I mentioned, finishing runs, and even making things happen when there was trash at his feet. There was definitely, I will say this, the offensive line, I thought for the most part especially against a starting defensive line in Seattle, I thought played much better football. But even when they didn't, even when there was a penetration or there was garbage at his feet, you see Dowdle able to use his quickness to get around, to break it outside, to get something where there was nothing. I'm not, I don't know that Dowdle is like a starting running back necessarily for most every NFL team, but I think at this point we've seen that he can be that reliable other running back who is going to be able to take a bunch of carries on and not, get you beat. And in fact, can actually give you some positive plays even when Pollard and Vaughn are on the field.
And for me, it was like the first or second run that he had. It was like an 8-yard game, but got north and south, put his head down and just ran over. I think it was a safety. And we knew that he's a powerful guy, but it's the explosiveness for me. It just jumps off the screen when you watch it compared to Malik Davis. And it's like, okay, that's what Dallas needs with Tony Pollard, is somebody that has that kind of explosiveness and that has that kind of power. I think he's won that job, Landon. I'm not sure it's all that close.
I'm not a fantasy football guy, as we all know, but if I were a fantasy football guy, I think Rico Dowdle might be a guy that people should consider. Think about all those touchdowns that Zeke ate up at the goal line. Pollard will get some of those for sure. But if you're, handcuffing guys, I don't know if that's a thing that people do.
It's still a thing.
The handcuffs still happen. Okay. Yeah. So if people are handcuffing, I think it's Dowdle that you should consider, maybe not Vaughn, because I think Dowdle will get a percentage of carries larger than Vaughn will.
Dowdle's role is going to be way more stable than what Vaughn's role is going to be from week to week. And I kind of can't see a situation now where Dowdle has like fewer than 8 touches in a game kind of moving forward, just because he's going to get some of the short yardage stuff. He's going to get the goal line stuff, or at least some of it. But I also think he's going to be the closer. Like in these games where Dallas is up 10 points, you're going to sprinkle in Pollard, but it's going to be Dowdle that's getting a lot of these hard-earned yards inside. And I'm excited because I promise there's going to be one of these runs this year where a team they know Dallas is running. They're going to have 10 guys in the box. Dallas is going to block it well, and he's going to be gone because I don't think people realize how explosive he is in the open field.
Yeah, because this is a situation where this is a guy who had a lot of weird stuff happen to him during the draft process, so he slipped through the cracks, right? Came back through, has had a couple of different injuries. So I think people have forgotten exactly what kind of athlete he was. And I think that's what happened with the Malik Davis thing too, right? Is that Davis came in this competition. He had performed well last season in his reps, and people had forgotten just how athletic and explosive and big someone like Rico Dowdle was. Now that he's healthy and he's showing us again, we're seeing, oh yeah, this guy was a little bit special. Maybe we can do something with it. Not all like Pro Bowl special, but better than, your average kind of RB2, more explosive, especially considering the fact he's 218, 220 pounds.
All right, that is it for today's show. We want to thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen every day. Again, every dayers. We'll be back tomorrow to talk some more about the biggest preseason winners and losers for the Cowboys. So make sure you tune in for that. We are free and available on all platforms. Go check out our show on YouTube. Go follow Landon on Twitter @McCoolBCB. I'm @Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you guys right back here tomorrow.